Please welcome Stephen Hall, Thunder Bay Area Manager of TransCanada Pipelines, with his presentation regarding the Energy East project. S'il vous plaît, veuillez accueillir Stephen Hall, gestionnaire à TransCanada Pipelines Région Thunder Bay, qui présente le projet Energy East.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can everybody hear me okay? I've got a little bit of a cold, so my voice is kind of goofy. So bear with me if you could. Before I get started on giving an overview of the Energy East project, just wanted to take a safety moment. And because there's so many industrial folks around here today, just a reminder to talk to your crews about ensuring that they use call before you dig. So Ontario One Call. So just took the moment to get my plug in there. So let's see. Whoops. Okay. So ladies and gentlemen, I'm pleased to have the opportunity this afternoon to appear before you on behalf of TransCanada to brief you about a project we're real excited about, and that is the Energy East pipeline project. So this new project we're proposing will provide significant benefits for all Canadians, including the citizens of Greenstone and the Northwest. Some things that are benefits include a stronger Canadian economy, thousands of jobs, local business opportunities, benefits for First Nation and Métis communities, greater energy independence, safer oil transportation, and lower environmental impact. So as a speaker after lunch, I'm sure everybody ate well. I realize that people start to maybe lose a little steam, so I'm going to run through this presentation in sort of an abbreviated fashion. Unfortunately, I don't think in your kits you have this presentation. So if anybody would like the presentation afterwards, please just let me know and I'll get you a copy, okay? So who's TransCanada? So I think most people in the room here have probably heard of TransCanada before. We've been in the community here for decades with our natural gas services through here. And now we're increasingly diversifying into all forms of energy, including power gen. Not only in natural gas, but also in wind, solar, nuclear, and hydro. In the last few years, we're also become much more involved and becoming a major transporter of oil. So what does TransCanada's profile look like in Ontario? So as you can see there, it's a pretty big profile, really, across the province. And where our pipelines run through Northern Ontario, we're basically paralleling, for the most part, TransCanada. And we pass by most communities. In fact, I'm told of the $75.2 million in property taxes that TransCanada pays to municipalities, $45.25 million went to Northern Ontario communities. In many small northern municipalities, TransCanada is the number 1 or 2 single property taxpayer in terms of amounts. Can you guys see this thing okay? Sorry. Can you guys see this okay? Okay. So what's the Energy East project? So what we're proposing to develop is a 4,500 kilometer pipeline from Alberta to New Brunswick, which will transport all kinds of crude oil, both light and heavy, from Western Canada to refineries in the east. Goal of which is to replace expensive oil that is coming from overseas. We'll be converting approximately 3,000 kilometers of that 4,500 out of existing mainline pipeline infrastructure and building approximately 1,500 kilometers of new 42-inch line. And the locations of the new build will be Alberta, Southeast Ontario, Quebec, and New Brunswick, as you can kind of see on this map here. So new builds are over here and over to the west here. It's not a very good pointer. Okay. So in Northern Ontario, we propose to convert our Line 4 and portions of our Line 3 to oil service. The capital cost of the project is forecasted to be $12 billion. Even in today's world, that's a lot of economic activity. Okay. So what is the timeline? This graphic shows you the high-level schedule for the project. We plan to file our formal application to the National Energy Board in the middle of this year. The board will then review our application and examine the comprehensive environmental impact statement we'll be filing with that application. The board will hold public hearings on the project, including here in Ontario. We expect that they'll be in a position to determine whether this project is in the Canadian public interest and give their recommendation to the federal cabinet by the end of 2015. If the project is approved, construction would begin in early 2016 and with a planned in-service date to Quebec of 2017 and to New Brunswick for 2018. So what is a conversion? So the conversion kind of is composed of three separate things. The first thing is to ensure integrity of what you're converting. The second thing, there is to isolate the system you're converting from the gas system. And the last thing is to construct new facilities that you need. So in our case, through Greenstone, it would be pump stations, for example. So of the project, a full 70% of Energy East will involve the conversion of a section of our main line. So as I mentioned earlier, lines 4 and 3 in Northern Ontario to carry crude oil. So this is probably the most important thing for folks in the Greenstone municipality to kind of take from that. FYI, TransCanada has completed a major conversion in the past. If you've heard of the Keystone pipeline system, we converted part of our mainline gas system a few years ago from Saskatchewan-Alberta border to Manitoba. So we'll follow a process of testing a line, physically separating the newly purposed line from the gas system to make it independent and separate system, and then building our new facilities. So as you can see over here, well, in Ontario, so we have a number of facilities in Ontario, but overall, we're forecasting 72 new pump stations across the line. So I'm going to come back to pump stations a little later. There'll also be work to install new valves into the converted line at the pump stations and at determined locations along the line. As you can imagine, given the process involved, there'll be a lot of testing and construction along the converted sections of the line, and hence lots of work opportunity. So what are some of the project benefits? So at the broadest level, really it's a Canadian benefit. So it's to our advantage to develop and use our own petroleum resources rather than to buy from foreign sources. A study by KPMG completed last October showed that Western Canada's oil sector business generated over $44 billion in 2012 and helped to support almost 420,000 jobs. Because there are many businesses right here in this region that provides products and services to support the oil production out west, the study also showed that $3.5 billion was generated right here in Ontario, helping to support 37,000 jobs in our province. Construction and operation of the Energy East pipeline will also generate significant economic benefits. Here in Ontario, a Deloitte & Touche study estimated the economic activity generated during development and construction of the pipeline, and for the first 40 years of its operation, will amount to over $13 billion in GDP for the Ontario economy. Create an additional $3.5 billion in government tax revenues for the province and support more than 2,200 direct full-time jobs for development and construction, and almost 200 additional permanent jobs for operations. Let's talk now about local impacts for the project. So a number of new pump stations will be sited in or near Greenstone. So there's a list of the ones up there presently. The project description, which was recently filed with the NEB, locates at least 3 to 4 such stations. I would recommend that if you want to get lots of info, that if you go onto the National Energy Board site and you look up that project description, Volume 1 details a lot of information around the types of stuff that people in the community would want to know about potential work and the process that needs to be followed. Initial pump station locations are determined by engineering studies based on pipeline hydraulics. Sites are then refined through desktop analysis and field visits, taking into account proximity of the location hydraulically, proximity to existing TransCanada facilities, proximity to local roads and power supplies, land use and environmental characteristics. So a pump station, what will it typically include? Typically, they're electrically driven pumps. They'll have an electrical substation. They'll have electrical equipment shelters. They'll also have leak detection and emergency shutdown systems, station isolation valves, and yard piping. So power to the proposed pump stations will be generally supplied by third-party providers. However, certain remote pump stations may be self-powered by gas-fired generation facilities located at the stations themselves. They will be included in the ESA for the project. So there's other benefits locally for us. So one thing that's real good about this project is that from a property tax perspective, increasing the infrastructure will increase the tax base. The other good thing is that repurposing the line makes the gas side of the business more competitive. Where it makes sense, the project will employ local workers to help us do the pipeline conversion work and build the new facilities. We'll need as many as 150 people to build the pump stations and about 100 for the pipeline work. 80 to 90% of those folks will be highly paid tradespeople, and the rest would be office and administrative individuals. In addition to the construction side of things, we'll also need to call upon local businesses to provide services such as catering, fabrication, mechanical services, electrical services, heavy equipment, and earth moving. There, of course, will also be a lot of business for local hotels, restaurants, and stores. So another good thing about this, it's kind of near and dear to my heart, is being a good neighbor in our community. So over the years, TransCanada employees have lived, worked, and volunteered in the Greenstone area. They've shared the same pride, the same values, and ownership that everyone else has in the community. And with this project, we'll end up increasing our presence in Greenstone. And we'll continue to help locally with the things that matter most. Community investments like floodlights and microscopes, books and food hampers, computer labs, support for programs, and events that help people better themselves and enjoy living in Greenstone area. So just as an aside, in the last few years, over $80,000 has been invested in our community of Greenstone. And interestingly enough, community investment program for Energy East pipeline project has already begun, even though it's in such an early stage. So first and foremost, pipelines are the safest way to transport oil. I think that's quite well known. And the health and safety of the public, our employees and our contractors is paramount to us. Energy East will be one of the most technologically advanced pipelines built. Some highlights I wanted to just share with people are 24/7 monitoring system with highly trained staff and advanced technology. Safety valves installed across the pipeline that can isolate irregularities in minutes. Extra safety precautions at road crossings, rail and water crossings, and near populated areas. Our foremost objective in operating the Energy East pipeline will be to ensure safe and reliable transportation of the crude oil product. On environmental protection, we're committed to preserving important natural and cultural features and mitigating potential impacts during and after construction. We will meet and exceed applicable laws and regs as we commit in our recent project description filing. So this project is a huge priority for our company, and stakeholder and Aboriginal engagement is correspondingly a major priority for us. In the second half of 2013, Energy East project hosted 61 community open houses. So I'm not sure if any of you guys went to the ones that were held probably around September, October. Those 61 open houses were across 6 provinces, from Alberta to New Brunswick. And in Greenstone, there was one in Geraldton and one in Nipigon. These events were attended by a total of 4,100 individuals. There will be additional open houses planned for this year, including in Dryden on the 26th of March and in Nipigon on the 27th. So there will be plans to visit other northwest communities in Greenstone either in the late summer or late fall of this year as we get more project details to share. An active engagement process with our Aboriginal communities is also underway. So I'd like to encourage everyone to go to those and provide your input into the project. So please do. So this is just a quick summary slide here of what I covered. I think the key things to keep in mind is that through Northwestern Ontario here, it's going to be converted line. There will be lots of work involved in converting that line. The pump stations will be a lot of work through the area. And without further ado, I'd like to open up for any questions anybody might have.
Am I on? Okay.
Yep, you're on.
Thank you for your presentation. I'm Eric Rutherford, a citizen of Beardmore in the municipality of Greenstone. And
so diesel and gasolines and things like that, they're separated by density. So a lot of them are moved by that, but that particular answer there, I think I'd be better off to find somebody who can give you an answer.
Thank you, and I have one further question too.
Sure.
In discussions that I've had with some individuals, they've indicated to me that there will be emergency equipment that will be strategically placed along the line in the event that something doesn't go right. And this equipment, I'm just wondering, will it be stored by TransCanada Pipeline on site, or will it involve local fire departments, perhaps in the storage scenario, or will you be looking for private housing for the emergency equipment that will be strategically placed along the line?
So to answer your first part of your question, yes, there will be equipment placed strategically along the line. As far as the detail on where that will reside, I think those are details that would be worked through each community. So I'm not sure how that would work out for Beardmore, for example.
Thank you very much.
But I think we're early in the process.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Armin Jiguer, Councillor for Municipality of Greenstone. You touched on this, but I'm just wondering if you could elaborate a little more. How you propose to get power for this? You're going to need some extra power somewhere. Electricity for those pump houses and all that.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think there's ongoing discussions with local providers. And where it's possible, I think we're making those arrangements. Where it isn't practical, we're looking at all options.
You mentioned gas.
Yeah, gas-driven, you mean? Yeah.
Hi, Jordan Hatton with Pingwini Ashianishnabic. You were talking about isolation valves.
Yeah.
Can you tell me how far apart the isolation valves are going to be from each other, with the understanding that I'm assuming if there's a leak, everything in between the valve would leak through, but they would stop at either end? I'm assuming that's how it works. So how far apart would they be?
So the distance between valve sites would
Yep.
very much depend on the topography and what you're protecting,
Yeah,
right? So if it's river crossings or what have you, right? So to give you a generic number probably wouldn't be an accurate thing to provide you.
Is there an average based on other existing pipelines that you guys have already in existence?
Well, I don't think you can compare how you protect a gas line versus an oil. So that would be something, like if you'd like to give me your name, I can get you somebody who can answer that.
Good afternoon. Thank you for your presentation. My name is Marcy McIntyre, and I live with my partner in Thunder Bay North. And first of all, I'd like to comment when I heard that there are generators at the stations. Okay, and also using local electricity sources. Are there any dangers in the event of long-term power outages? Are each of these stations going to have like a backup, like a generator? So are there any safety concerns? And secondly, how long is this infrastructure built to last? And third, what are the sources of money for the upgrading and maintenance of this entire TransCanada line? Thank you.
Okay. Was it Marcia?
Yes.
Could you ask me the first question first there? Yes. Yes, I think you asked about 4 or 5 questions there, so
No,
I don't want to miss one.
There were
Sorry.
3. If there are power outages, if there are any safety concerns, long-term power outages, and then how long is the infrastructure built to last, and then the sources of financing for upgrading and maintenance through the lifetime of the TransCanada pipeline.
Okay, so maintenance is through operating maintenance, so that is what becomes part of what you charge people to transport a commodity. Let's see, power outages. So in the event of a power outage, I can't really give you a good answer on that, Marcia. Like it's very early in the process, and as I mentioned to you before, I'm a gas side fella, right? So if you'd like to give me your contact info, I can get somebody to call you. And what was your other question there? Sorry.
How long is the infrastructure built to last? Is it like 50 or 100 years? And
Well, there's pipelines that have been around for a very, very long time, Marcia. It's really a function of how well pipelines are constructed, maintained. So I don't think you would find that you can't operate a pipeline for a very, very long time if you do the right things. So.
Hi, Joe Hanlon. Question in regards to what Jordan was talking about. Unfortunately, we've all seen gas lines actually fail, and the gases have actually caught on fire and evaporated into the air or be burnt off. But we also see the horror stories in regards to ships or rail cars that lose crude oil, and it affects our wildlife, it affects our beaches. It affects, it depends where the rail car is, it can affect the whole community. So my question is in regards to this safety, how much oil is potentially could be spilled into some of our lakes or into some of our residential areas from this pipeline failing at that time? And then what's the process to get it cleaned up? Because some parts of the pipeline going through Canada are accessible. There's others that aren't. They're into swampy areas. You can see some potentials for a huge mess. Again, we're talking crude oil now versus gas. So just like to understand what the effects are of a failure and in all these safety precautions.
Okay, well, as far as from the valve side of things, that's part of the design process to determine where you have higher risk or more sensitive areas, and you put the spacing at a lesser spacing. As far as what you're talking about is spill and emergency response. For liquid lines, there's very, very detailed and complex preparations and plans made that have to be filed before you go into commissioning on projects. So those are all details that get worked out as things goes along. I honestly wouldn't be able to tell you a quantity of oil that would go anywhere. Our objective would be to not have any of that happen. So I don't know how I could answer that question for you. Sorry.
Hi, Audrey Fisher, Longlac 58, First Nation.
Hi.
I'm just referring back to the young woman that had spoken earlier. In regards to that, in Greenstone, we had a power outage. And we had elders that were out without heat for, I'd say, 17 hours. They're in wheelchairs. What kind of backup do you have should we run into something like that in the future? Like recently we had an outage in Greenstone, and elders that were in wheelchair, they had no heat, they had to use their ovens. What? Natural gas. I know, what I'm saying is, in the future, what kind of backup do you have for that? Like, say if anything, I'm not saying that you're going to supply the heat and all that, but just referring back to a question that was.
To electrical or gas?
Gas, or they.
One of the valves in the substations froze up, and Longlac didn't have any natural gas for 17 hours. It was fixed later on.
Yeah.
And it was 30 volts.
Yeah, I'm aware of that incident.
Is there a backup, for instance, like should your energy go into a Greenstone area, should you run into some similar situation? What kind of backups do you have? Your power outage is.
So we're not generating power for a grid.
It's not power, no.
Yeah, it's not power for a grid.
No, it's not.
It's power for the purpose of pumping oil.
Exactly.
If it's required because of its remoteness and accessibility to power, right? So.
Yeah. Is there a backup, like what kind of backups do you have for that?
I think that would almost be a question to ask the electrical guys, because We're not generating power to deliver.
And do you have information on your, what you have today? Like, do you have information on the displays table? I haven't seen any yet. Website? Do you have any information on
Yeah.
hand? Like, I would like to
There's,
take with me?
if you go onto the TransCanada website,
Yeah, the website, yeah.
there's a full project description
Okay,
with a lot of information there. There's also the NEB with the project description.
okay,
So that
thank
has
you.
a wealth of information
Perfect,
that
thank
can
you.
refer to. Yeah.
Thanks.
All right, Stephen, on behalf of the municipality,
You have another question?
we're out of time.
Terry Davis with J.D. Barnes. So because Line 4 is so sporadic in the Lakewood and Northwestern Ontario regions, does this mean that Line 3 will all be converted and Line 4 will be a bypass? Or when Line 4 is in use, they will continue to use Line 3 as a tie over to Lines 1 and 2 for the natural gas?
Okay. So line 3 in our area will be the dominant line because we only have sections of line 4, right? So wherever we have a section of line 4, we're going to employ it. For oil. For oil, yes. Thank you.
So there's your gift. Thank you, Stephen. So we're running a little bit behind schedule. We'll take like a 5-minute break, and then we'll get started with our feature presentation of the day, Ewan Downey from Premier Gold.
Wait 1 second, Karen. It's going to go on my back.